And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to Benchley Night. Welcome to Benchley Night on this 30th day of July. Oh, today could not have been more beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday was hideous. Yesterday was muggy and hot and awful, and then it rained a lot and the wind blew through. And by yesterday afternoon, it was lovely. And today, I think the high was 73. It was heavenly. Now, knowing what's happening to the world, it causes me to really be happy when there are days like that. How is everybody out there? How is everybody out there? As you know, the great Betty Sue is off on tour. Hey, and Betty Sue's watching. Hi, Betty Sue. And Martha's watching. Betty Sue is out on tour with the great James McMurtry, and they are tearing up the West, ladies and gentlemen. They are tearing up the West. Betty Sue has been selling so much merchandise. The cats are going to have very good food as soon as I tell them just how much merchandise Betty Sue has been selling. I have been very busy. I've been very busy with the Bellows Falls Diner project. And as you all know, the liberal snowplowing do-gooder beneficiary tonight is the endowing of the Robert Benchley chair, or rather stool, at the counter of the Miss Bellows Falls. I'm actually thinking I may attempt to do the Algonquin Round Table. I just have to research other humorists. I suppose Dorothy Parker. I should start reading some Dorothy Parker soon. Maybe I can find 4 humorists to name a foretop after, if we can raise enough money to do that. But anyway, we're trying to raise $5,000 to endow the Robert Benchley chair. And this is the 4th week of this particular fundraiser as part of Benchley Night. And today we fell a little short, so this may drag on for a while, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to get to $4,000 raised total today. It's been $1,000 per reading, but today we only raised like 500 and something. And I am matching if we can raise $250 more, that'll get us to $3,750, and I'll match that $250. So toss us $1 or $2 if you could, ladies and gentlemen. Toss us $1 or $2. Enough blathering. Now, the unidentified ungulate is ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. And the unidentified ungulate wishes to thank Francesca Snarsky, the inimitable Terry Hudson, down there in Houston, Texas, where he wears Clemson orange. He writes in Clemson orange. His donations are in Clemson orange, Mr. Robert Ellis. My partner in Roots on the Rails, Sarah Ovenden. Over there in the UK, or I guess it's now kind of no longer U. Over there in the K, Mr. John Smethers. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, where the shores of the ocean lap against the cornfields and lobster rolls are served constantly, Mr. John T. Wilhelm. Out there in Saxon's River, she stopped through today and dropped off a check, as is her wont. Dropped off a check at our front porch after treating herself to a late brunch at Cafe Loco. Ms. Martha Rowley. Friend and excellent artist, Ms. Catherine Fisher. Oh, a fellow train fan up there in St. Albans, Vermont. A good man, Mr. Jim Frisk. Karen Faisler. Thank you, Karen. I know you've donated more than once, Karen, and it is appreciated. It is appreciated. And last, well, and I'm going to say an anonymous, because some money has shown up and I'm not quite sure where it came from. So I'm going to blame Anonymous. Thank you, Anonymous. Oh. Yeah. And lastly, out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the Lincoln Highway arcs over the funiculars, and the steel mills are now condos. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's a beautiful place, and looking down upon it all is my very, very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his little dog Ginger, and his wonderful wife Elise. Thank you so much. Now, tonight's reading, I've read these before. I think they're very funny. Because I enjoy reading those exploration books like Shackleton and, all the doomed people who went to South America and Mr. Popper's Penguins and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to read 3 episodes of the Life Polar Expedition, which was published in 1927 in Life magazine. Now, Life magazine at that time is not the same as Life magazine, the pictorial magazine. Life magazine was a humor magazine, and Robert Benchley amazingly wrote for them as well. I mean, he wrote for so many people. And given the amount that he was drinking and the fact he died at like age 57, he was a theater critic. He wrote under a pseudonym. He wrote under the name Guy Fawkes, which I just learned. Was writing for the New Yorker for all these magazines and writing for Life. And what he is satirizing here is the bird expedition. I just did a little reading about it. In 1925, Richard E. Byrd, whose uncle was Senator Robert Byrd, recently moved on to the great Arctic expedition in the sky. Richard Byrd proposed flying to the North Pole via dirigible. And he ended up teaming up with a fellow named Donald B. McMillan, who suggested instead an aeroplane. And they ended up teaming up together, and Mr. McMillan's idea triumphed, and they did use an aeroplane. But bad blood erupted between Mr. Byrd and Mr. McMillan, because Mr. Byrd apparently was taking credit for things that Mr. McMillan thought were more his ideas than Mr. Byrd's ideas. Okay, so with all that set forth, that is what Mr. Benchley is satirizing here. The Life Polar Expedition. In spite of the fact that already 3 polar expeditions are well underway in the air, Life has decided that in the interests of science, demand, or at any rate, ask nicely for an expedition to be conducted through some other medium. We have therefore decided upon the bicycle. Now, we realize that our expedition will have to hurry like everything on bicycles to catch up with the Amundsen and Byrd groups, but we're willing to make the try, and all our men are imbued with an enthusiasm and zeal to carry the banner of life to the pole. That can't help but result in something. Feverish preparations are now underway for the belated start of the Life bicycle expedition to the North Pole. The tardy departure has been due to the failure of the contractors to finish the trouser clips in time, but everything is now in readiness, and it looks as if we might start any minute now. The men are all eager to catch up with Amundsen and Byrd, And we all feel that by very fast pedaling and no fooling along the way that we can do it. We will do it, Lieutenant Commander Mark Connolly said to me last night, and that just about expresses the spirit behind the whole trip. Why did you choose the bicycle? A lot of people have asked us. Why court danger? Now, we realize the risk we are taking, but we feel that the bicycle is the logical means for a party of our description to reach the pole. 3 years ago, such an expedition would have been impossible. But since then, we have learned so much more about the Earth's magnetism and bicycle navigation that, along with the improved technique in balancing, which we have discovered, we feel that the danger is merely nominal. The furthest that we can possibly fall in case of an upset is in an arc with a radius of perhaps 6 feet. Now, in this latitude, or in any latitude in which we're likely to be for some time, the rate of acceleration of a falling body is 32 feet per second. So you will see it can't hurt much. Furthermore, we are using the new Radley model bicycle, which combines all the best features of the old Columbia bicycle with several modern inventions, such as the gyro balancer and the flash tail light. The gyro balancer is a contraption attached to the saddle by means of which the rider is enabled to doze or to shell nuts as he rides, and be assured that unless he leans beyond an angle of 45 degrees, his machine will right itself automatically. If dozing, however, he must not forget to pedal, as the gyro balancer does not function unless the wheel is in motion. The flash taillight is more for looks than anything else. It flashes red, green, and vanilla. As at present planned, our course to the pole will be as follows. Leave the Life offices at 598 Madison Avenue, New York. Over to Fifth Avenue, up Fifth Avenue to 120th Street, skirting Mount Morris Park, past 138th Street, Mott Haven, striking onto the Bronx River Parkway, up through Morrisania, Woodlawn, Mount Vernon, Bronxville, Tuckahoe, Crestwood, Scarsdale, Hartsdale to White Plains. From White Plains, we continue north, direct into Canada, and through Canada to Victoria Island, a short carry across Melville Sound to Melville Island, another carry to Borden Island, followed by a short carry to Axel Heiberg Land, and a final carry to Grant Land or Ellesmere Island. Thence, direct to the pole. 2. En route with Life's polar expedition, passing through 125th Street, Manhattan, May 12th. After a successful hop-off from the curbing in front of the office of Life at 598 Madison Avenue, New York City, we pedaled our bicycles slowly up Madison Avenue to 59th Street, where it was discovered that Lieutenant Commander Connolly's rear wheel was still locked, a precaution which had been taken while the machines were standing in the rack outside the office. This had made speed out of the question for Lieutenant Commander Connolly and had resulted in an odd dragging sensation which he was at a loss to account for until a passerby called his attention to the locked wheel. The trouble was immediately remedied, and the expedition proceeded at a much smarter clip up Madison Avenue. This little incident at the very outset of our trip, well, unimportant in itself, just goes to show the spirit which is animating our men and the determination in their hearts to see this thing through at any cost. Lieutenant Commander Connolly might very well have become discouraged when he found out that his rear wheel was not revolving at all and abandoned the thing entirely. But with characteristic bulldog grit, he kept pedaling right ahead with only one wheel and would probably have stuck at it until a pole was reached, do or die. It is such courage that makes us all optimistic. Proceeding up Madison Avenue to 60th Street, we turned the wheels at a sharp right angle and we cut across onto 5th Avenue. This, well, hang on a second. This, well, perhaps foolhardy on the face of it, was not the madcap move that it might seem to you sitting safely at home reading of our progress. For we had received wireless messages from the station at 72nd Street and Madison Avenue that at that corner there was a nasty excavation into which we might very well have hurtled with disastrous results had we kept on our way up Madison Avenue. I never before realized what a valuable service the wireless telegraph can accomplish, said Ensign Thermaline to me. Ensign Thermaline was on the bicycle just ahead of me, and as he turned to make this remark, his front wheel struck the curbing a glancing blow, which threatened for a moment to result in a spill, but with rare presence of mind, Ensign Thermaline turned his head front again without waiting for my corroboration of his remark, which I would have given willingly had there been time, or had the occasion been more propitious, and utilizing the gyro balancer with which each of our Radley machines is equipped, he righted himself in his wheel in no time at all. It was an exciting moment, however, and we all felt better when Ensign Thermaline was once again headed straight north up 5th Avenue. All of our instruments are in excellent working order except the flash tail light on Lieutenant Commander Connolly's wheel, which persists in flashing red, a signal that he is going the other way. It should be flashing green. This has caused a little confusion amongst vehicles following in our wake, for the printed directions in the daily papers stated that these vehicles encountering our expedition en route could tell the direction in which we were moving by watching our flash taillights. Red if we were going south and green if we were going north. Something akin to a panic was caused amongst the passengers on a Fifth Avenue bus, which was following close on behind Lieutenant Commander Connolly's wheel when he suddenly flashed red, indicating that he was pedaling head on for the bus. It was only when Lieutenant Commander Connolly yelled at Cherry, "Mistake, mistake," that the bus driver could be convinced that he ought not to turn aside and let the Connolly wheel pass. We are now approaching 125th Street, and the difference in the atmospheric conditions between lower and upper Fifth Avenue is distinctly noticeable. The traffic, while just as heavy, is a little easier to steer through. Ensign Thermaline seems at the moment to be lost, but I have no doubt that he will turn up again as soon as that big van as soon as that big van gets out of the way just beyond Captain Nordney. Captain Nordney joined the expedition at the Hetzlicker Foundation at 104th Street and Fifth Avenue. It now looks as if we might be able to make 138th Street, Mott Haven, by nightfall, but I rather hope that we don't, as there probably wouldn't be any place to spend the night. I certainly have never seen or heard of any hotels in that neighborhood. 135th Street, New York City, May 12th. At 5:58 p.m. today, the Life Polar Expedition passed through this street, bearing northeast by north. The members seemed a little tired, and Lieutenant Commander Connolly's wheel was dragging badly. Commander Benchley was sending out messages in all directions, asking if anyone knew where they could put up for the night. Railroad YMCA, 140th Street, New York City, May 12th. Preparations are being made here to take care of the Life Polar Expedition, which is due to make a landing at 6:20 p.m. Searchlights are in readiness and hot baths are being run to accommodate at least 2 of the party. That was the first dispatch, ladies and gentlemen. That was the first dispatch. It's now 8:07. I had said we're going to read 3 dispatches tonight. We're just going to read 2 because there are several. And I did blather at the beginning, and I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for that. Now, apparently, the New York Times, Benchley was annoyed that the New York Times had paid quite a bit of money to the Bird expedition to send these dispatches back. And he keeps making jokes about that as this continues. The Life Polar Expedition, en route with Life's bicycle expedition to the North Pole, May 17th. We are now just between Woodlawn and Mount Vernon, at a point where there seems to be some sort of road digging going on. This means we shall have to sit down and wait for them to finish, or else go back and take a roundabout route. We are just a little discouraged. Chief, Lieutenant Commander Connolly said to me as we're pedaling through Morrisania, 168th Street, do you ever have any doubts about our catching up with the others? Amundsen and Bird, I mean. I felt a strange little chill creep around my heart. Was this mutiny? Have you heard any of the men talking? I asked, without looking at him. Well, no, not exactly, he replied, but Ensign Thermaline asked me yesterday how long I figured it out that it would be before we sighted one of the other expeditions. You can tell Ensign Thermaline, I said, that if he will keep his feet pedaling round and round just as fast as he can and maintain his balance, the rest of us will do the same. Lieutenant Commander Connolly looked at me with tears in his eyes. Aye, aye, sir, was all that he said, but it spoke volumes. From Mott Haven, where we spent the night, we pedaled due north over the Grand Concourse, stopping only once at a repair shop to get a new thumb piece for Ensign Thermaline's bell. Ensign Thermaline has been using the bell almost constant. Ensign Thermaline has been using the bell almost constantly since leaving 57th Street, being one of the most cautious pilots in the expedition. Now, a peculiarity of the country which we've all noticed since crossing over the Harlem River is the rows upon rows of large apartment houses which have sprung up along this route. At first, none of us spoke of it, but finally Lieutenant Commander Connolly could keep his thoughts to himself no longer. Have you noticed the large number of apartment houses along the way? He asked. We all admitted that we had. In front of one of these apartment houses, an interesting sight met our eyes. A little boy was seen riding along in what looked like a very small automobile. And it was, in effect, really an automobile, except it was propelled by the little boy's feet, which were in direct contact with the sidewalk. Some members of the expedition were in favor of stopping and getting the little boy to join us. But wiser counsel prevailed, and we decided it would take him too long to get his winter things packed, that we ought not to incur any more delays than we should run into in the natural course of events. He would have been cute, though, said Lieutenant Commander Connolly wistfully. Just the other side of Williams Bridge, we ran into an obstacle for a while threatened to hold us up indefinitely. Right in our path, we came to a high wall surrounding a reservoir. We sent unsigned Thermaline up to take soundings, and he returned, making a long face, and reported that the reservoir was practically 10 feet deep. What a place to build a reservoir! What a place! What a place to build a reservoir anyway, I said, and the others joined me in my disgust. Fording the darn thing being out of the question, we decided it would be better to take one of the roads which seemed to lead around it. We chose the one to the left because left is Lieutenant Commander Connolly's favorite direction, and Dame Fortune was with us in our choice, for it led, after a while, right into the Bronx River Parkway, which was just where we wanted to be. Had we taken the road to the right, there is no telling where we should have ended up. There's a little notation here. And if you follow, it's a little star, you go down. The right road also leads to the Bronx. The right road also leads to the Bronx River Parkway, editor. It was in passing Woodlawn Cemetery that we got into the discussion, which is still raging as we sit by the roadside near Mount Vernon. The sight of the miles and miles of monuments in Woodlawn depressed Lieutenant Commander Connolly and set him to thinking. Man's span is so short, he said, drawing up alongside my bike, as we call our wheels. Man's span is so short, it seems hardly worth all the fuss and bother of trying, doesn't it? Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Man's span is so short, it seems hardly worth all the fuss and pother of trying, doesn't it? He whispered. I think the word is bother, I said. Which word? He asked. The word you call pother, I replied, a little cruelly, I'm afraid. Are you sure? He asked. As sure as one can be of anything in this old world, I said. That's just it, the lieutenant commander returned. What can one be sure of? We are born, we grow up, make our little plans, and what sad, brave little plans they are, too. And then, just as we think we are succeeding, the young explorer stopped and looked at the rows of tombstones on our left. I know, Lieutenant Commander, I said sympathetically. You don't have to say it. And so we rode on in silence until we reached this sort of digging up that they're doing in the road. Then I said, oh, the devil! In this rather pat climax to a discussion on philosophy, we both laughed. But if we're held up here very long, there'll be no laughing matter, for in the papers, we read that Amundsen is already on his way to the pole from Spitsbergen. The brave boys of the Life Polar Expedition are pedaling furiously in a northerly direction and expect to reach Mount Vernon any day now. Another dispatch from Commander Benchley will appear next week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to end it tonight. More dispatches from the Life Polar Expedition next Sunday, right here. And if you feel like tossing the Miss Bellows Falls Diner Robert Benchley Endowment Chair Stool, $1 or $2, that would be very, very welcome. You take good care, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.